Welcome to Intuitive Transformations with your host, Sylvia Henderson, and discover tools, wisdom, and inspiration that will empower you to transform your life. Sylvia is an intuitive life coach and energy healer with a growing practice that is focused on empowering others to be more of who they want to be. For the next hour, join Sylvia and explore and unravel anything in the way of you creating the life that you would love to live on the OMTimes Radio Network.
Well, hello and welcome to the Intuitive Transformations radio show, where you will find tools you can use to change and transform your life every Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on the OMTimes radio network, the voice of consciousness at omtimes.com, or you can find us by simply typing iom.fm into your internet browser. My name is Sylvia Henderson, and my work focuses on releasing the limiting beliefs that have stopped you from truly enjoying your life. You know, those gnarly subconscious beliefs that are hidden way beneath the surface of your conscious awareness that sabotage your life and create self-sabotaging thoughts. The thoughts that cause you to remain in painful relationships, that limit your financial potential, rob you of your inner peace, block you from trusting your intuitive knowing, and keep you trapped in anxiety, worry, and fear. If you would like to learn more about me and the work that I do, you can visit my website at intuitivetransformations.net. And while you're there, sign up for my monthly newsletter, and you'll receive a free guided meditation called Healing Fear During Uncertain Times. Now, everything that I share is really born from my desire to help humanity heal from the drama, trauma, and pain that we hold within us from the past, especially during this time when humanity just continues to dive deeper into its shadow nature. This is why I do the work that I do and why I host this radio show. Anything that I can do to help others to wake up to the truth that unconditional love is the dominant vibration that supports all of life, I am definitely willing and open to do. My passion for helping others comes from what most would consider to be a highly unfortunate circumstance. I had injured my lower back in 2012 to such a degree that I was pretty much bedridden for 6 weeks. I was in so much pain that I could barely walk. I had to depend on my friends and family to bring me food and water. Taking a shower was excruciating, and I often had to crawl to get around my room or just to go to the bathroom. I was in a lot of pain, so I was on a lot of pain medications as well as muscle relaxants, which basically just knocked me out, but they never really turned off the pain. And my most comfortable position was lying in the bed on my left side in a fetal position. And I was giving up. I was afraid that I would never walk again. And it was so painful that there were some days I literally would just pray to God to just let me die and not wake up. I had tried everything that I could think of to get better, and I wasn't improving. And this is after having, I was the kind of person that worked out in the gym 4 times a week, and I always healed very, very quickly. So not having a strong body was really foreign to me. Well, one day while laying in the bed in excruciating pain, I remembered that I had purchased a book about 7 years prior to my injury called A Course in Miracles, but I had not read it yet. And surprisingly, it was in my nightstand drawer right next to my bed. Thank God, because I couldn't make it down the stairs. And I opened it up and I started reading it. And I started to sob because everything in it was what I wanted. And to make a long story short, it was not long after that I was able to walk again, obviously. I'm no longer bedridden. I had an amazing chiropractor who came to my home after he was done with his long day and worked on me there until I was able to walk again. I continued to read A Course in Miracles, and once I was able to drive, I joined A Course in Miracles meetup group in Seattle, Washington. About a year after that, I slowly, daily went through the lessons in A Course in Miracles with a friend of mine from the group. We would each read the lesson together every day, and then we would share our observations and insights from the prior day's lessons. And I have to tell you, doing all of that really changed my life. Course in Miracles, I should say A Course in Miracles, gave me my first real awareness of unconditional love. And with that awareness, my life was transformed. A Course in Miracles teaches that it is our conditioned beliefs and judgments that hide the abundant presence of the unconditional love that surrounds us all. That we came from love, we are love, and we're destined to return to love. And that forgiveness is the key to it all. Forgiveness is actually the most important and powerful thing that you can do to improve the quality of your life. And I now live every day experiencing miracles whenever, and I do emphasize whenever, I allow my perception to shift from judgment, resistance, and fear to forgiveness, allowance, and acceptance. Today, my guest and I are going to share a divinely inspired conversation about how you can live a happy and fulfilled life and find the love within you based upon what she has learned from studying and teaching from A Course in Miracles. Her name is Reverend Marie Felipe, and she is the author of Live Your Happy, Get Out of Your Way, and Find the Love Within. She is Cuban-American born in Miami, Florida, and she is 5'9" tall and has a towering personality to match her height. After experiencing success as a model and actress, including hosting World Wrestling Federation TV shows, Reverend Marie Felipe felt called inward and studied to become a reverend at Pathways of Light, an accredited religious school inspired by A Course in Miracles. Reverend Marie Felipe leads regular monthly services in English and Spanish at the Unity Church in Burbank, California, and she is joining us here today. Reverend Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What an inspiring overall intro. It totally sounds like the book, Live Your Happy. I love it.
Doesn't it, though? I know.
Yeah.
There are no accidents in the universe, ever, ever, ever.
Yeah, so your calling and your calling and everything you share is like, I was like, wow, it's just totally in alignment. I'm excited.
Great. So am I. So before we dive deep into your book, would you mind sharing with everyone what happened in your life that drew you to the spiritual path you're now on, and how did A Course in Miracles come into your life?
Well, the Course in Miracles came into my life because I was, in my teens and very just in a very confused state of where my career would go and what would I do for the rest of my life. And I was an actress at the time and was very insecure and I was just at a loss. I went into depression. I wasn't sure what was going on. And I remember walking into a bookstore, Barnes and Nobles. At the time, I don't know if most of us could relate with self-help desperation, I was just so desperate to have a healing, and I would try to read all these books. And so I went to the bookstore to find another one to see if I can calm my nerves. And I saw Mary Williamson's book, Return to Love, which is based on the Course, and I bought it. And I remember it really helping me with my anxiety and helping me as I was acting to feel more confident and more worthy of the jobs that I would get. Because I would get a job and I would get a lot of anxiety. I felt that I wasn't good enough. I felt I was always comparing myself to other girls and other models, and I was very insecure about my smile. I just had a really, really hard time. And I read her book. It gave me comfort, and then I wouldn't study it again. I put it down, and it wouldn't be 5 years after. So I found her book in 1995, And then in 2001, I went to Unity Church. Unity Church are non-denominational churches that are all over the U.S. And I love it because, basically it's just everybody is one, and there's no crosses or anything, and everybody's accepted, all religions, and all sexes and races, and I really loved it. So I started going there, and when I'm at the bookstore, they mentioned that there's a workshop going on, and that it's a Course in Miracles. And I was thinking, oh my God, I think that blue book that this Jewish lady was talking about in her book, Return to Love, because she talks about it left and right. And I went to the workshop, and in the workshop, the guy said, this is the Course in Miracles, and basically what it's about is that you're wholly responsible for your experience and how you perceive things. You forgive people for what they didn't do. And the only thing that's real is love, and all else is an illusion. And I literally fell off my chair, Sylvia. I was like, wow, it just blew my mind. And I really didn't understand the concepts at the time because it was so radical from my thinking. Like, just to even say that you forgive people for what they don't do was very off for me. So from that moment on, I would start my journey on studying the Course in Miracles. And quite honestly, again, I didn't understand what he was saying, although I knew that it would be my path and that I would study it for the rest of my existence in this realm.
Well, I love that you pointed out that, because I forgot that that's exactly what the Course in Miracles says, that you forgive people for what they didn't do. And that is such a radical concept, because we've been taught you forgive people for what they've done, but for what they didn't do, because the Course in Miracles has a different perspective on what is actually happening. So since you've opened that can of worms, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, I love it, because that's like really starting with a punch, because forgiveness is actually one of the most radical things that the Course talks about, and in the sense of it's radical because it's completely different than what the world has taught us forgiveness is. So I love how we're starting with a big punch here, and I know that the audience could handle it, So, forgiveness is the biggest topic, and basically why you forgive people for what they didn't do is because it's not the forgiveness of the world. The forgiveness of the world is that you really make form matter. You really make it matter that something's happening to you. So in that case, you have to forgive that. But the Course says that nothing's really happening to you because you have the opportunity to perceive things as you choose. So you're not a victim of the world that you see. So you look beyond form, you look beyond the illusion. So that's why forgiveness is different based on the Course. Forgiveness basically reminds you that you're not a body, and reminds you that there's nothing outside of you that can truly, truly hurt you. Now, people would say, well, what do you mean? That's kind of crazy because this person just slapped me, or this person just screamed at me. What do you mean that they haven't done anything to me? Well, in form and in this world of duality, it appears that they have. I'm not saying they haven't. It appears that they have. Although Course in Miracles says, in truth, like in reality, if only love is real and all else is an illusion, then it's not true in the realm of oneness. That person has forgotten who they are, just like we forget who they are, because that person has an ego and we have an ego. So that person has come from a space that they have forgotten who they are. Course says everything is love or a call for love. So that person has just forgotten who they are. And you're there to just be a beacon of light and to remind yourself that there isn't anything outside of you that can truly take away your power or hurt you, which I think it's so powerful. But it's hard to practice that when it's happening and you feel it. Although that's when you call in your inner teacher, which is the Holy Spirit that the Course talks about, so you can perceive the situation differently. So the first step of forgiveness is responsibility. So you take responsibility for your perceptions. Also that you call that into your life. You have to own it that for some reason you're experiencing that relationship, that situation, because we are here in a spiritual college and we have divine assignments. So you've called that divine assignment to you, so you own that responsibility for that assignment. And then secondly, you realize that nothing's happening to you because unconsciously you've created it for your healing. So you forgive that person for what they didn't do. Why? Because unconsciously you've actually set it up. But you have an opportunity to see it the way you want to. You can perceive it with love or fear. Then the third step is you give it over to Holy Spirit and say, Holy Spirit, I give you over the situation. I give you over this relationship with this person, and I ask you to see it another way, and I want to perceive it another way. And that's what the Course in Miracles calls a miracle, a change of perception from fear to love. So that's basically what forgiveness is. And it's so different than anything I've ever heard my whole life.
It really is, and it's so powerful because just first knowing that even the thought to me that something even has to be forgiven, needs to be forgiven in a sense, because nothing's been really done, to you. Everything serves.
Exactly. It's always perfect. So if we even say we have to forgive something, we're already automatically losing our power because we're making it real. We're making it matter. You're like being a victim. You're like, oh, this is really happening. So guess what? I have to forgive it. But if you look at it like you called it in and you're responsible and you could perceive it the way you want, then it's different because then you're empowered and you have the opportunity to perceive it the way you choose to. So that means that it can't have a hook on you. It's completely different than what we've been taught in the world of form. And it will completely change the way you experience life. You will be so much happier because it's less likely that there isn't anything outside of you that could really hinder your peace from, being on line to get your license or having a car accident or even a death in the family, Yeah. It can really change the way you perceive that.
Exactly. Maria, when we return, we're going to continue more of this conversation because I can't wait to dive into the fullness of your book. Everyone, you're listening to Intuitive Transformations on OMTimes.com. We'll be back in just a minute. Please stay tuned for more.
The future of Internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
When I was little, I didn't talk for a long time. I was sensitive to lights and sounds, so I built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. Sometimes I did the same things over and over, until one day I found out I had autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Intuitive Transformations radio show. This is Sylvia Henderson, your host, and I have with me today my very special guest, Reverend Marie Felipe, and she has written a very dynamic book called Live Your Happy, Get Out of Your Own Way and Find the Love Within, which is based upon the teachings of A Course in Miracles. And what I love about this book is that it is very user-friendly. It's extremely accessible. It's easy to understand. And she's just got beautiful stories in here that are very real and alive and relevant and that will touch everyone who reads this book. So let's talk about your book, Live Your Happy. First of all, the title. What is your definition of happiness, A? And I heard that this book came to be because of a Facebook post, and then why the title, Live Your Happy?
Well, the title, Live Your Happy, was actually the very first title that came to my mind. And the reason it came is because I like, of course, it's very Course in Miracles based. So it was like, it's basically living the Course in Miracles principles without compromise and without exception. And it's really diving deep. So it was more, the book is coming from the space of more of living it, which is really bringing in these tools into your daily experience with your relationship with yourself and others. So I'm a happiness teacher by trade. Like that's what, as before I wrote the book as a speaker, all my talks were based on happiness and how people can find true happiness, not the cheerleader happiness that comes from, getting accolades and stuff in form. So what I decided is I put happiness and living together. So I was like, live your happy. And then what does that mean? Well, living happy means that you start to just make form less and less real. Happiness for me is just, it's going beyond form. It's recognizing that there's so much more. Living your happy is taking responsibility. It's really taking responsibility of how you perceive things, and it's forgiving even if you don't want to. It's recognizing that you have everything and you lack nothing. So for me, it was to really bring the reader away from their intellect and to their heart. To really bring the reader into wanting to, once and for all, want to make the change. I feel that we say we want to heal, Sylvia, but not really. It's like there's this subconsciousness there that you say you want to change, but so many of us, and I've seen it over and over again because I suffered from this, that we want to change, but we don't want to do the work. We don't want to change our mind. We still want to hold grievances. We still want to judge. We still want to look for happiness outside of ourselves. So I wanted to write a book that really inspires the reader to begin to practice these principles daily without exception and without compromising it, because that's when you really start to see change. So that's where the title came from. It comes from, instead of it being like you do all these exercises and you read the book and then you feel good on Monday, but then on Wednesday, you don't feel good anymore. You're a hot mess, which was my experience with books. I wanted a book that will inspire you to really live long-lasting happiness throughout this experience that you're going to be in this realm, to really, for it to be long-term, not to be temporary. Because I feel like I would read books and my happiness was always based on something outside, so I wouldn't experience it completely, and living your happy is really undoing your ego. Your ego is that part of yourself that's fearful, which we could get into later, but that's what the book is about. There's so many books out there that sometimes people can't relate because the author is coming from their stories and their experience, but not necessarily do they get something out of it, like myself, because I couldn't really relate to the author. But in this case, I didn't want it to be about me. Yeah, I share stories, but this book is mainly about undoing your ego. And I think that it's helpful for everybody because everybody has an ego in this world of duality, Nobody does not have one, So
yeah, exactly.
I made sure it's for everyone. And then basically everybody has an ego. So, but yeah, the story is really, if you want me to share quickly the story of how, it was published because of a Facebook post.
Please, yes. I thought that was curious.
Yeah, and I'll make it a little shorter because, well, it's inspiring just because I suffered from dyslexia. I wasn't very good at school. I actually, as I was growing up and I was little, I had learning disabilities. I was very charismatic. I was a very happy child, and I was very street smart. Like, I really got my ways in a lot of ways, but it was more street smart. It wasn't school smart. So I never considered myself, intelligent in school, which means that I wasn't good. I felt like I wasn't good at grammar, or particularly even felt like I could even write a book. So when I was speaking and people would ask me for a book, I didn't have one. So I created this amazing CD with all my power talks to keep people quiet, for like 3 years. I was trying to just did not want to write a book, But one day I was having a glass of Pinot Noir. I really enjoy drinking wine every once in a while and having a nice meal. And I had just a little bit got a little bit tipsy, and I just wrote this thing on Facebook that was really inspiring. It was basically how I was able to heal, and I was starting to no longer look for my happiness in relationships and in a man, which was one of my biggest grievances in this lifetime. So I wrote that, and it sounded so good, Sylvia. It sounded so good that I put excerpts from my book. I don't know why. I put that, because remember, I didn't want to write a book. And second of all, I didn't even know what an excerpt was. It was really a quote, because it was a small little quote.
Mm-hmm.
But I put excerpts. And then D. Patrick Miller, which is the original publisher of Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard, which is also a very popular course book, reached out to me. And we talked on the phone. And he told me, well, Maria, I really would love to talk about your book. And because I get very interested when course teachers have a book, and I want to know a little bit about your book. And I said, well, Patrick, the truth is, I don't have a book. I was so embarrassed, Sylvia. I was like, I don't have a book. It was actually the Pinot Noir talking.
Well, the Holy Spirit can even use a glass of wine,
And he started laughing, and I go, it's true. I was just all giddy, and I don't know, I just felt inspired. And then from there, he would convince me to do a book proposal. And then from there, we would turn in the book proposal to a couple of publishing houses. And then within 6 months, we got this offer from New World Library, and we took it. And then that's how the book was born. But Patrick says that book was born in that Facebook post. It was like the book was already coming through me, because it had to be born. And that, and I really believe that, because that's like divine intervention, because Maria, the separated self, the fearful self, the dyslexic one, the one that feels she can't write, would never write that. It totally came from spirit, and my true self when I wrote that.
And that's such a testament to how the Course in Miracles unwinds the ego from within us, because the egoic self had all these fearful thoughts about who it wanted you to believe you were. And yet, when you just by studying the Course in Miracles, I'm sure you've done the lessons, and teaching it and really just eating it and breathing it, it has undone a lot of that egoic fear, where even though, yes, it was a glass of wine that kind of loosened your resistance to make that post, it was really all those, all that unwinding over time that allowed you to just fully step into, this book is going to be born through me, and allowing it to come that way. And that's really how A Course in Miracles works,
Mm-hmm. I love the way you describe it. It's true, Sylvia. It's very natural. When you start to heal your mind, it's everything just gets very easy. I always say easy is normal, and you don't have to push it or make it happen. Sometimes there's effort, there's inspired effort, although it's not pushy and it's not manipulating or controlling. And that's how this book was for me. It was very easy for me because I made it easy, because, again, I didn't really make it matter, and I didn't make it define me. You know, in my
Yeah.
acting career, I made it define me. All my life, my acting career defined me, and I suffered a lot. So when Spirit called me in to be an author and to be a speaker and a teacher, I always said, listen, this is going to be fun, because I suffered so much with my acting and competition that I was like, I'm not doing it here. And I think that's why I've been successful, is because I've never focused like this is such a big deal for me, or I've never made it control me. It's more like God defines me, love defines me. Like, that's my number one priority. And the rest is like, yeah, it's fun, but I don't focus too much on like if I'm a successful author or not, because I already went through that. So if I'm going to be in this realm and do this fun work, I'm not going to experience it like I did my acting career, you know, and I think the less I've made, the reason that it's worked out is because I really haven't made it matter and been like, oh my God, this is such a big deal, you know?
Yeah. You also have there's a great deal of surrender that comes with that too. You know, letting go and trusting and just allowing your inner guidance to speak through you. And you even have a chapter that you call You Are Not Alone. And a lot of people think that they are alone in the world today. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that came from a space of really understanding that you can develop a relationship with Holy Spirit, which is your inner teacher, which you can call it your best friend, your inner friend. You could actually even call it your inner wisdom, or it just depends what word resonates with you. But in this world of duality, we experience two different teachers, two different voices, and that's the voice of fear and the voice of love. So the voice of love is the Holy Spirit. The Course in Miracles says that the Holy Spirit is actually God's gift to you, or to us, and that we can ask for guidance. And that's why we're not alone. It's because at any time, with practice, we can give over our thoughts, and we can ask Holy Spirit for help. And it takes something. So that's why you're never really alone. It's like you think you're alone because you think it's me. It's all about me. I got to make this happen. I got to control this. This is my problem. So you have every right to feel alone if you're doing it by yourself, or you think you're doing it by yourself and you have this me complex. Of course you have every reason to suffer and be sad and be concerned. But if you give it over, like you said, and you trust, and you really allow, instead of you doing it, you allow it to be done through you, you start to experience that, wow, you're not alone in this crazy circus of a world, you know? You actually have divine guidance that will show you the way. And the more you trust, the more you're going to be guided. Everybody has a voice. And it just takes a moment to close your eyes. You know, people always ask me, well, in my workshops, like, so what should I do here? Or what's the answer to this? And I always have them close their eyes. And I'm like, okay, close your eyes and breathe and ask. And then they ask. And then they say a couple words. And then I was like, you see, you have the answer within you. You know, me telling you what to do, I'm disempowering you, because you know, like, we all have the voice within us, and the job, at least for myself, the facilitator, is to help you get the answer for yourself, because you're not alone. And I empower you by you giving yourself the answer, and then you pump up the volume on that voice of love. You know, it's like when you go to the gym and you see results in your body, the more that you give it over to Spirit, you start seeing the results of the change of your mind. And it's a daily practice. So that's why you're not alone.
And that is so beautiful. I love that, you know, just the simplicity of closing your eyes and asking. You know, everyone has that available for them. And it's something that what's sad is, you know, many have been taught not to trust themselves. They've been told they don't have the answers. And what I love about your book is that you reverse that misfortunate untruth. We really do have the answers within us. And your book definitely does point to that. That's very beautiful. You know, as you've already alluded to, there's these two voices, this duality. So we have the voice of the Holy Spirit, or that wisdom within us. And then we also have this egoic voice, which you call the cuckoo voice in your book. And so, which I thought was adorable. So what are some of the tricks? What are some of the tricks of the ego? I mean, how can people really begin to discern the difference between hearing that voice of wisdom versus hearing that cuckoo voice of the ego?
I love the way that you say cuckoo. It's so funny. Oh, I love it. Yeah, it is, because it is cuckoo. I always say it's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and it's not the cereal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's worse than that. Yeah, just to clarify, yes, the Course in Miracles talks about 2 different thought systems, which I actually go over them in detail in my book, because I feel that some course students sometimes don't get it and don't understand it. So I wanted to give clarity on what that even looks like. So I actually defined what's the ego in my book, and in detail, and also what are its tricks. So that way you can be mindful and aware of them. So that way, when they do come up, you can stop yourself, and you can choose again. You can choose your true mind, your true self. So one of the ego tricks, Sylvia, is the should. So when you catch yourself saying, you know, I should have done this better, I could have gotten that job, or you know, if I'd followed my hunch, that would have worked out differently, you know. The ego likes to use a should to punish us inwardly, and you know, and such as judgments, you know. Also, you know, you can should on other people, you know, or would, you know, so if you love me, you would do so and so for me, or you know, or you should have done things my way, and then all would have worked out, you know, or you could be doing more for this relationship, you know. So it's kind of like external judgment. So that's one of the ways the ego gets us, is by shoulding. And the other one of the big ones,
I always tell people you should stop shitting on yourself, you know, because that's kind of how we go. You know, Maria, I'm going to stop you here because I know we're going to go into a break in just a moment, because I want you to continue to share these other little tricks of the ego that are sly and catch us by surprise. And so when we return, there'll be more of Marie Felipe, and you're going to learn more about what the ego's little dirty tricks are. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Lisa Berry. Join me every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for Light on Living, a chance to see new, hear different, and feel more as I shine the spotlight on all the ways to lighten the load of life's challenges. Light on Living is your link to that new way you're looking for, that new understanding that will enhance your life, and that positive connection that will support your growth. So join me and you'll gain insight and start to see things in a new way that motivates you.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Thank you for joining us. We're back from the break. This is Sylvia Henderson with the Intuitive Transformations radio show on OMTimes.com. And I have with me my guest, Reverend Marie Felipe, and we're talking about her book, Live Your Happy, Get Out of Your Own Way, and Find the Love Within. So, Maria, before you continue where we left off, which is how the ego can come up with these little things that trip us up, tricks of, really the tricks of the ego. Can you just share how people can get in contact with you?
Sure. I love to always be in contact with people, and they let me know how they're loving the book and how it's been helpful. The best place is actually on my website. It's Maria Felipe, that's Maria Felipe, FELIPE.org. And you could go on there, and I have a lot, actually have, you could get a free intro to my book on there, if you guys want to have a little sneak peek, as well as you can download 3 thought songs, which are 3 talks that I've given based on the book. And there's also a book bonus. So if you decide to buy the book, I offer these free videos. Also on YouTube, on Maria Coconut TV, I offer over 250 interviews and talks that I've done for free to my audience. So that's another way that you can, take a look at my work, and I trust that you will be inspired and it will bring you more happiness, because as you are doing, Sylvia, I'm here too to just remind people that, they're worthy, and that you could change your mind and you can live the happiness you're worthy of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's continue this conversation about the little tricks of the ego. So you've already talked about the shoulds, and that's how those are the thoughts that we use to punish ourselves inwardly and also to punish other people. And so what's something else that the ego has up its little sleeve?
Well, the other ego trick is one that I'm sure a lot of people could relate to, and it's definitely one that kept me stuck for so many years, and that is obsession with the past. So the ego likes to keep us in the past because it's just constantly making us think about how we messed everything up, and of course how we could have done it better, So it just continuously, you keep on rehashing that story, that your mom, told you weren't good enough, or you keep on rehashing the story that the doctor told you that you don't have enough good health. You keep rehashing the story that you wish you hadn't been so jealous with your ex-boyfriend, because then maybe he wouldn't have left you if you would have been different. So it's like this obsession with something that's already happened in the past. So it's delusional. Why, Sylvia? Because it's already done. You can't go back in time now and change it. The only moment that you have your freedom and your peace is in the present moment. So the more that you rehash the past, the more that you're fragmenting, and the more that you're making this world of form real, and the more you're going to suffer. So the more that you're present and you let go of what happened, the happier you're going to be. Because why? You can't do anything about it. It's delusional. It's like thinking about something over and over again that you have absolutely no control over. The only thing you have control over is this moment, and how you're going to perceive this moment, and how you're going to experience this moment. That's your point of power. But if you're obsessing from the past, you don't have that access, because then you're not here. You're somewhere else, which is just delusional. So that's another trick of the ego. And that trick, what happens is it contributes to poor health. It contributes to depression. It contributes to not sleeping, because how many of you or how many of us go to sleep thinking about something that happened during the day that you can't go back in time and change it. So that's another ego trick, obsession with the past.
Well, it's go ahead. There's another one I know, but I just wanted to tell everyone that this one, I think it trips everyone up. We just keep revisiting the past and drag it right into our future as if it's still happening now, and it's not. And what I love about your book is you really point out go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Sylvia.
I was going to say, you really, what I love about your book is you not only point out this truth, but you also have exercises, and you give everyone instructions for how to unwind that as a habitual process. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, and just to point it out from what you just said, especially in that with obsession with the past, I know that I give a little story too, in reference to, one of my clients that pertains to that individual topic. So obsession with the past, I will give, like a little story so that people can have an example. And the reason I did it that way, I did stories or processes, is because that's what helped me. I kind of learn better if I have an example of somebody's story. And what helps me is to have practical application that I can do daily, that I don't have to sit for hours, meditating, It's like simple everyday things. So yeah, I think that's one thing that that actually I share after the ego trick, which is stop, look, and listen, something like that. So basically you can stop the thought. So if you're obsessing from the past, you can stop it, because you have the right to say, stop it. I want you to stop it, world. I want to get off. We can do that. Why not? Stop it. And then look is like you become aware, you become present. You're like, oh wow, okay, I'm obsessing from the past now, and look, how's it making me feel? Oh, okay, I'm feeling insecure, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling whatever it is, and that's okay. You want to feel, you want to feel that, and then you want to give it over to spirit. You want to stop, you want to look, and you want to ask, and you want to listen, and say, Holy Spirit, I give you this thought that I'm having, and I'm sad, and how can I see this another way? And you receive guidance. So those are that's like the little one that I use. That's very easy. Stop, look, ask, and listen. So I'm just going to share one more trick. I'm going to skip focus on the body, which people could read, but this is the fourth one is my favorite one, which is the ego will trick you into believing that your happiness is where? Out there, So when the ego's running the show, you need to make things happen, and you need to try to manipulate, and even if the world, even if it kills you, the ego's always whispering in your ear, if you have enough money, if you have the right person, or if you have the perfect job, you're going to be happy. If you made it on a material level, you will be happy. But if that's true, then why is it that alcoholics, drug addicts, people that are suicidal or depressed, and they have money, right? And they have success on the material level. So if that was true, that form gives you happiness, then why are these souls so unhappy, right? So that right there tells you that form is not your happiness. Actually, the opposite of that is happiness. Is recognizing that form has nothing to do with your happiness. Happiness is your function. Happiness is your inheritance. It's like love. Love is what we are truly. Peace is what we are truly. Happiness is what we are truly. And it can't be taken away from us. So when you say that happiness comes from something in form, you're actually saying that your happiness is outside and it could be taken away from you. But that's absurd, because happiness is who you are. It's your DNA. It's what you are from beyond form. The light that kind of is under the encapsulated body, if that makes sense. It's who your essence is. So it can never be taken away from you. And it's also something that can never be given to you from anything outside of you, because then you have no power, you see, if everything is defined by something outside of you. So that's the other one that I like, that it's like that it tells you your happiness comes from out there,
And I love that, because in every page of your book, that's what you're teaching, that happiness is an inside job. It is not, the new car. It's not the new boyfriend or the new girlfriend or the wedding date. It's not those external things that our marketing media wants us to believe it is. Sure, you can have happiness when you buy that car, but as soon as that car has a dent, it's just a car. You're not as excited about it as you were when you first, drove it out of the showroom anymore. After a while, that happiness tends to dissipate. But this is about unlocking the happiness that we're all born with. When you look at a little infant, they're happy, until we teach them not to be happy. I mean, they might be a little upset if they're hungry or if they're wet, but then they're content. That's our normal, natural state. That's how we come into this world. And then we unlearn that. We learn all these conditions, as Maria has already said, that what we should or should not do, that the ego likes to throw at us, and it just robs us of our happiness. And Maria, one of the other things you were talking about earlier was people being, you think people want to be happy, or you think people want to be healthy, but people get very attached to their stories, because it's almost like the ego is afraid of losing its identity, and it will grasp onto anything that it can claim as a way of defining you. And that definition is typically not really the truth of who you are, because the voice of wisdom is always a place of love and support. And there's no sense of punishment or guilt or shame associated with the voice of wisdom within you. And it's just really interesting that, we do get attached to these stories, and we're afraid to let go of them, because if that's all you've known as your frame of reference, there's a question of who am I then if I don't have this? And so the ego likes to have a sense of identity, and it uses those stories to keep us trapped. And what I love about your book, because I have studied the Course in Miracles, and it's huge undertaking. It's not a light read, folks. It's not something you can just pick up and leaf through. It really does take some digestion of it, to really integrate all of its truths. I'm not saying you can't read through it and just really get revelation after revelation, but it's a little bit like reading a Bible. It's pretty extensive, and it's what's surprising about it is that it was completely channeled. And when you think about that, it's like, how could that have happened? Because it's so eloquently done and beautifully written, and everything is just falls exactly into place where it should. But what you've done in your book is you've given the Course, you've put it in a way that it's, like I said, very accessible for anyone. Someone in middle school could pick this up and really have their life change. This is a book that a teenager can have, because when I think about what's going on right now, especially in the United States with our teenagers, so many of them have lost their sense of self. They, they don't have, their self-esteem is just not, they don't care about themselves. It's not, they don't care about themselves because they don't take a shower, or they don't keep their room clean. This is different. They really don't, they've lost their sense of value. And, gifting a teenager this book is a huge, I encourage anyone who's a teacher, if they can do that and get into the hands of their students, if you're a parent, but get it for yourself too, because, as I shared, the Course in Miracles really changed my life. Obviously, it really changed Maria's life as well. And it's changed hundreds and thousands of people's lives. And if you're looking for a way to get out of your internal pain, this is a great door to use. And just to remind you of the title, it's called Live Your Happy, Get Out of Your Own Way, and Find the Love Within. And as you know, Marie Felipe, she's the author. Her website is mariafelipe.org. And I love that she's got a YouTube channel called Maria Coconut TV. I think that's just wonderful. And, you can hear the exuberance in her voice, and it's not based upon the external. This is really coming from within. Did you always have this happiness, or did it evolve over time through your study and reading and teaching of the Course?
Yeah, it evolves over time, and that's a good way to kind of, as we conclude here, is the practice. I began to live the happiness that I'm experiencing when I decided that I was done. I really had big willingness, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with the suffering. It's, because I studied the Course about 10 years, and I still wasn't experiencing the happiness that I was reading about in the book. So when I decided that I was done, and I started to implement the Course's teaching again without exception. So basically I would look at my stuff and I went back in time and I healed my relationship, especially my relationship with my father that committed suicide when I was 3 months old. I worked on that. Was that fun? No, but I got my healing on, and that's what I tell people. I experience the happiness I'm experiencing because I've done the work. And again, it takes something. You have to really, really want to practice the tools and implement them, even if you don't want to, because ultimately you're going to start to experience a happiness beyond measure. And it's not going to be the cheerleader happiness that comes from form. It's going to be your true essence happiness that cannot be swayed, cannot crash. It's just you just experience it fully. So I've been experiencing consistent happiness for about, I would say, 5 years now. Yes, I do have my moments, but I could say that when I do feel sad now, it's actually very foreign to me. Before sadness was very natural for me. I was like sad at one day, and then the next day I had the cheerleader happiness, but now I experience a sense of happiness consistently because of my spiritual practice. So if there's anything that anybody could get out of this program, is that you want to practice, you want to really implement, the teachings from the morning you wake up till you go to sleep, and do it without exception. That's where you're going to see true change. Again, it really takes something.
Yeah. Marie Felipe, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been such a wonderful show, and I really know it will bless many who listen. And everyone, just a reminder, Live Your Happy is available just about anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I'm sure it's an ebook as well. And it's Live Your Happy, Get Out of Your Own Way, and Find the Love Within. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful week. See you again next week. Same time, same channel. Take care. Love to you. Bye-bye.